Hello, welcome to Forest Focus. Happy start of the 24-25 PSR accounting window as Nottingham Forest start of the month of July with Murillo and Morgan Gibbs-White on the books, along with Elliot Anderson, a potential £35 million man some fans might not even have heard of before the weekend. We'll discuss his arrival as well as the departures of Odysseas Vlachodimos, Orel Mangala and Moussa Niakhate in the company of, first of all, Michael Temple. Temps, how are you doing?
I've put an appeal out on Twitter today. Anybody that can give me that hair in real life, take my money. This is how I need to look going into the Great British Summer.
For those who are listening, not watching, this is like Euro 80s style playing cards that a few of us have done. Second guest today is Pete Blackburn. Outrageously handsome card there, Pete.
Pete's done that on Photoshop. That's not from the app. That's Photoshop.
It's quite a generous one, isn't it? That I'm all right. A little bit fragile after the night in the big shed last night, but okay. Pleased to be here.
We shall get onto that, a bit of England chat as we go along. Third guest, the serious football analyst of the show, who's looking slightly nervous, but there isn't a playing card of Lewis McGugan. Lewis, how you doing?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you.
Good to have you with us. Like I say, a lot to get through today around transfers, the shape of the squad, how things are looking going forward, a little bit of England chat as well, as we have time, and we might even touch on the comments of Jim Ratcliffe, depending on how the clock is ticking in our favour. Let's start with you, Temps. It's been really busy since the start of the week, and obviously Niakhate and Mangala look like they are officially going to Lyon for a combined 50 million quid, which is mad. We're buying Elliot Anderson for, well, a reported fee of up to 30 million or 35 million. I've been reading around it today, and it looks like we might actually be paying the 30 million pounds guaranteed from what I've been reading in articles. We've sent Vlachodimos the other way. Haven't seen anything on the fee apart from one article in the I paper saying it's a small fee in inverted commas, which to me could be anything between 1 million and 5 million. We just don't know. We'll get into talk around the fees of it all, but just in general, what do you make of it in attempts if we are PSR safe and able to go from here?
It tells me that Lyon have done all the hard work for us because of the fees paid for Mangala and Niakhate. So that's great work from the Forest hierarchy. The Newcastle dealings, Vlachodimos and Anderson weren't necessary for our PSR calculation because of those two boys who were bound for France. So yeah, pretty frenetic, mad week, but we've come out of it having lost Mangala permanently, which we knew was happening for a long time. Lost Niakhate, who we can definitely do without and should be celebrating having made such a tidy amount of money from. And I think we can all be excited about what Elliot Anderson might be, because from what I've seen, incredibly close control, takes a lot of touches, draws fouls, gets whacked, but he's got the physicality to crack on, and he can make progressive runs and passes. So excited for what he might be as a young player with Premier League experience, which is something that we called out for wanting over the past few weeks and months.
What about you, Pete? Are you pretty excited where we're at? Considering we were all pretty worried, and I kind of thought Murillo would be the sacrificial lamb to be where we are with him in the squad. You know, for now, we don't know how it's going to pan out until September, but we've got to be very satisfied that him and the big guns are still here. How are you feeling about it all?
Yeah, great. I mean, as long as we get to the point where the PSR calculations are actually made and checked, and you know they are as the club want them to be and stuff. Because I mean, previously clubs have had various issues, I think, where they've sort of had recalculations and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, if this comes off, if everything is as it seems, then I think it's great business from Forest. A couple of players we've lost there that would be good players in our squad, but one of them we've already been coping without. And as Temp says, I think he's right. Niakhate can be coped without as well. If you told me that we would be able to comply with PSR for that period without selling Murillo or Gibbs-White, I wouldn't have believed you. I don't think so. Seems like great business from the club to me. And on the Anderson signing, I mean, we'll talk about transfer fees and such like. I don't think we can be really sure at this point what the cost is, but I think we've got a player of real talent, real athleticism, and a really, really strong addition to the squad there. Someone we can be really excited about.
Last time you were on, Lewis, with Pete, I think it was Thursday, and the Niakhate stuff broke. The fee was 20 million. That feels like a lifetime ago in terms of how we view transfers. How are you feeling about it? Do we have to just discount fees in general, the way things have been this last few days and weeks with clubs who are threatened with PSR?
Yeah, I think if you look at it, I think across the Premier League, the ones who have done business in the last week to 10 days, a lot of the prices and valuations are a bit kind of left field. And at this point in time, we can't really put a finger on what the actual amount is, and possibly we'll never know. But I think the hierarchy and the people in that place in the football clubs, in our football club, have done what they've felt is necessary. And hopefully they've done that with the 2 deals with the boys going to Lyon, and that's helped us with that situation. And we've brought obviously Anderson in, and hopefully with that, it's a case of now we can put to bed the two big players potentially leaving, and even if they did leave, hopefully now we're in that kind of point where we can dictate if they're going to go. It's on our terms and not really where we're getting forced to do it. So I think all in all, I think it's really good business from the football club both ways, and it's another exciting player coming to the football club and hopefully can demonstrate what he's about.
Yeah, like you say, I think it's so hard to judge these fees, and we don't know what they are. But even if it is 30 million, like Newcastle signed Lewis Hall from Chelsea for 28 million yesterday. They signed Tino Livramento a year ago from Southampton for similar money because they were homegrown talents, and we've seen it more recently with Ian Matson and stuff. So I'll come back to fees later, but just in principle of the player, Lewis, Elliot Anderson, I'll put the graph up that I've shown the last few days. Very good on the ball, carries it well, moves it into the box, looks to score goals. Primarily a number 10, can play left wing, can play central midfield, can do a job in a number of positions. He sounds a bit like a young Lewis McGugan, I must say, in player profile. So good to have you on. What do you make of it in general? I don't know how much we've really seen of him, but is it kind of exciting that we're getting this young talent in early when they can still improve and progress as a player for our football club?
Yeah, definitely. I think if you look at the player himself, and you always look at what was his capacity, what was his role at the previous club, and you look at Newcastle and where they've been over the last couple of years and the heights that they've reached. He's even though he's young, he's played quite a pivotal part in that. Eddie Howe is always in matchday squads. He's always on the bench. He's starting games. If not, he's always kind of the first 1 or 2 subs. So that tells you straight away in the kind of the how much Eddie Howe and Newcastle hold him in his. They didn't want to let him go. So I think that's really, really positive news in the fact that we've got a player that has come from Newcastle, but also been even though he's young, played quite a pivotal part in the last 2 seasons. So the only thing, obviously we were talking off air, the only thing what sometimes these inflated and these prices and valuations are doing, they're sometimes maybe going to put a little bit more pressure on these players coming into the club. I think if you looked at Anderson, for instance, and he comes in maybe half the price, I think he's like, you look and hopefully he can come settle in and look at Gibbs-White, look at Hudson-Odoi, look at Alanga and share the workload. But sometimes you're looking at, if it is 30, 35 million, that's a player that's coming into a football club and you're expecting big things from, especially where we are as a football club. When we're shelling out that kind of money reported, you're expecting them kind of players at that valuation to come in and hit the ground running. So from a player's point of view, and a personal, I think them prices, if anything, I think it's just a bit of a negative pressure on the player coming into a football club, and it probably puts them under the spotlight a little bit quicker than it would like.
I suppose Lewis is right, Pete. We probably need to be patient with him. You read a lot of good things about him. There's a quote from Graham Carr that I read out about how good he is. Anthony Gordon bigging him up as, this emerging talent just waiting to break through. What are you hoping for and expecting from him? Because I know you're quite excited about it.
Yeah, I think he's a real talent. I'm really excited that he's coming. To be honest, I think so many of these questions are going to be determined by the state of things when September comes around, because we don't really know what the squad's going to look like, and therefore we don't really know what Anderson's role is going to need to be at this point. We could be in a situation where he's competing with Gibbs-White for a spot, or he's trying to fit in the team out wide instead of Alanga, or he might be becoming the main man if we've had a knock your socks off offer for Gibbs-White. So we really don't know, do we? I mean, personally, I think you'd have to try and cut out all the outside noise, and hopefully he'll be of the sort of mentality that he can do that. I mean, he seems like a a really, really bright young man and a bright player. And I'll be certainly trying not to judge him too heavily based on the transfer fee at this point, because we're paying for a player of potential and someone who's going to grow over 4, 5, 6, even more years, aren't we? Not the player that he is just now. So that's not gonna define things for me. I think he's just a fantastic footballer who can play in a number of positions that we need competition in at the moment, and hopefully we're able to keep the sort of squad together where he is competing with other players rather than having to take on an awful lot of responsibility at this point. But regardless, I think he's a great addition. He covers us as well with the situation with Gibbs-White, because we know there's going to be interest in him, and we've talked before about how on earth do you replace a player like Gibbs-White. Well, I think they've gone a fair way to doing that. Whenever that situation actually comes around now, hopefully it won't be imminently, but this is a great addition for all of those reasons, I think.
470 people with us already in the first 10 minutes is great. So do us a favour and hit like if you haven't already. That would really help us out. I suppose, Terence, one of the things that we've been critical of the club before with transfers is it's chaotic, it's all over the place. But here, what Brighton do, we always look to Brighton, but what they'll do is they'll buy a player 12 months before they need them. And I give Forest a lot of credit for buying Anderson. Either, realistically, we might get 12 more months out of Morgan. If we do, great. If we get even more, fantastic. But to have someone in place and not be scrambling feels, clever to me. And I think we have to give the club credit for that.
Rafiq's put it in the comment there, succession planning. I think that's exactly what's happening there. Unrealistic for us to have Morgan Gibbs-White at the start of next season, I believe. I think he feels that if he'll be tempted to move elsewhere, if not in this window, then potentially next summer. But I think what most importantly for me, what Forest have got themselves into now is in a position where they can say no to the derisory bid, and they only need to accept mega money, their rate card, for Murillo and Morgan Gibbs-White. And we feared some kind of fire sale back end of June. We're not privy to that calculation, but they found another way. So absolute credit to Forest to getting themselves into a situation where if anybody wants to remove Morgan Gibbs-White and Murillo from our football club, they have to pay top dollar. And that can only be a good thing for us. This guy is probably where Morgan was 2-3 years ago, needs to add more goals to his game, but often the pass before the assist, very comfortable on the ball in tight spaces. And if you watch highlights of his clips, both off the bench for Newcastle, I think he started 13 games as well, but during his time at Bristol City, very, very tidy player. Yes, there's some defensive fragilities, but our team needs to score more goals. If we can get that blend right with the shape and the midfield three, I think he's got a big role to play. And yeah, to your point and Rafiq's, if he's ready to slide in at the point that Morgan departs, fantastic. I'd like to think we get one more season out of Morgan Gibbs-White and we're not thrusting him in as our Premier League number 10 as we look to make our progress as a club rather than Morgan's progress as an individual. But if he is to leave our club now, it's for real money.
Is there a price with Anderson where you think, oh, actually, this is a bit steep, like 20 million, 25 million, 30 million, or is that, it can't be irrelevant because I don't want to be here in 12 months scrambling for PSR on the last day of a window. But how do you view the fee? Do we have to just discount it as much as we can, or what?
If he's with us for 5 years, then it's good business, isn't it? It's a 5-year contract at something in the region of 30 million quid. So it amortizes at circa £6 million a year. That has to be a good thing for a 21-year-old British player, Scottish international, that's going to appreciate and value. It's a risk. They all are. He could have an ACL tomorrow, or he could score 15 goals next season. There's a massive range of outcomes for him, but there won't be too many available Premier League ready 21-year-olds in the market that we could whip out. And if Newcastle weren't needing to sell for their PSR calculation, I don't think they would countenance a higher transfer fee. I don't think they'd want to sell him. I think he's exactly the kind of player they'd want to have splinters for the next 2 years as they find a way to get him into their side. So high potential player, the fee's the fee. We're well within PSR. There's some genius negotiating gone off to extract Mangala and Niakhate in the way that we have. We've kept hold of the crown jewels. We've got a good young British player. Let's give Forest the praise they deserve for their business over the past couple of weeks.
Thank you very much to Phil Benstead for becoming a member. Appreciate the support, Phil. There's a members social on August the 1st. You're now thoroughly invited to that. So do come along if you can. I'm just going to bring back up this graphic. So I was looking at Anderson because he can play out wide, but he's a ball carrier. And I was looking, he played almost all his games last season centrally. I think it was only 2 games he played out wide. He started 10 and came on in 11 in the Premier League. So does he offer us something different, Lewis, in terms of a progressive runner from deep? I mean, he kind of does a lot of what Morgan does, but does he potentially offer something different to what Danilo and Dominguez offer, maybe?
Yeah, I can't really. Like I said, I've seen him a few times, but I can't really see him playing as a midfield two. That I don't see him in that position at all. I think he's a player that can play any of the 3 behind the striker, and I think that's what he's brought in for. I think he's very fluent in all of them areas, and I think he can kind of come in each one of them positions, no problem. So I think that's what he's. I think that's what he's been brought in for is competition for them, kind of attacking 3 behind the main striker.
And bearing that in mind, Pete, we've spent a huge amount of money on a player that might not start in R11, and I am fully on board with it. But with the signing of the player, I asked this to Chris yesterday on the show. Are you a bit worried that we've blown? We don't know what our budget is. A potentially very big chunk of our budget on a player that's not a nailed-on starter. Is that something that worries you at all?
No, I'm not particularly worried about this. I mean, these conversations are so difficult to have because I haven't got any insight into what the PSR figures look like for the coming years. And obviously the rules are changing as well. So, I mean, there's a lot of flux around this. I mean, I think Temps is bang on about all of it. I think the way I'm looking at it is we've got a really fantastically talented young English footballer who can be at this club for a long time. And if he leaves, I think he'll leave because he's outgrown us and is worth an awful lot of money. And I think that's the sort of place that we want to be in. In terms of not being a guaranteed starter, well, I mean, that's just going to come down to him forcing his way into the team one way or another, isn't it? You know, there are options. I mean, the way I see it, I think Lewis is right. I can't see him playing as a 2 in central midfield. He's a player with attacking instincts who's going to want to be further up the pitch. And we already have enough problems sort of with discipline and such like in that area of the pitch. So, I mean, as I see it, he's either playing if Gibbs-White isn't available or needs a rest, or he's competing with him, or he's playing out wide, or we could potentially see games where we move to that sort of 3-4-2-1 formation that we played in the past a bit, and he's one of those 2 10s behind a striker, I guess. If we don't need the wingers, so that's an option for us as well. But you know, you need a lot of players for a season. You don't just need 11. You know, we've got players who have injury issues. It's a long, grueling season, and you know, I think he's good enough to force his way into the team for quite a lot of the season. So no, I'm not. I've got no concerns about it, to be honest.
As Paul says, do us a favour, hit like and subscribe, everyone. That would be great. Cheers, Paul, doing my job for me. What about? We're getting ahead of ourselves here, Lewis. But say he has a really good pre-season and he looks ready to start at number 10. What about Morgan playing deeper? I know it's something you've been against before, but if there's a quality number 10 in place, is it wise or prudent to get Morgan deeper and see what he can do as an 8?
Potentially, but I think Pete alluded to it earlier that I think at this point in time we can sit here and have so many different scenarios of what could happen and where could people play. I think the reality is we got to look at it now, and when the transfer window shuts, was Anderson brought in to be competition, or was he brought in to replace? And right now we won't know that. But again, once that transfer window shuts, we'll know exactly kind of where we are. And I think we can sit here and have the debate of where maybe potentially he's going to play, or where does that put Gibbs-White. But I think it's still so early, and there's still so kind of a lot of things that can happen and transpire up until the window shuts. I think it's very hard to kind of pigeon down a kind of place where they're going to be effective in this team.
Let's move on to Vlachodimos, Temps. Unless you've got any final thoughts on Anderson, do drop them in after this question. But in general, Vlachodimos, I mean, I said this yesterday. He looked like he should have been so much better than he was. Is it just great we got rid of him for any old fee because his wages were high, and we can just not have 4 keepers warming up before matches now. We can have 3. How do you view Vlachodimos?
One out the door, not enough space in the car park. I just think that we saw him as an alternative to Turner, and we ended up crediting him for his relatively good distribution, but didn't have the presence. He was bundled over the line a couple of times, dropped a couple of crosses, and found ourselves analysing his mistakes. Forest took decisive action there and signed Matt Sells in January, and things were much improved. So at that point, there was no way back for either of them as Premier League starters at our club. And it was only right that we looked to ship them on. So I have absolutely no remorse over that sale. I think it's the right thing to do. Nor do I think that Matt Turner really wants to be back up at this stage of his career. The challenge we've got there is that the finance involved in getting him out of the club is probably quite costly for us. He's earning a salary which belies his performance levels in a Forest shirt. So yeah, good news to get Vlachodimos off the books. Not in his interest either to be a bench warmer, although I fear that's what he's going to find himself doing at Newcastle as well.
Yes, it is interesting, that you've gone to Newcastle. I'd imagine to be 3rd choice, maybe 2nd choice. I saw they signed John Ruddy as well. They're stockpiling keepers. I guess Dubravka might go, or Pope might go, or something, but I don't think he's gone there to be number 1, Pete. But it's interesting. I mean, I feel like the Vlachodimos fee is kind of essential to the discussion around Anderson and how much he costs, but we don't know what it is yet. But one thing about Vlachodimos was he was a big earner, and the signings we made so far, I don't think we've broken the bank bringing these players in wages-wise, and that's probably the other facet of the thing we have to be really mindful of, because you see the trouble Leicester got in with their wage bill. It feels like we're on the right track thus far, touch wood, assuming we're not paying Anderson 200 grand a week or something mental. We're on the right track as well in that sense, hopefully.
Definite progress on the wage bill with the players who've left and the loan players whose contracts have expired as well. And that's something that the club are going to have to be very careful with going forward, I think. I think that's the easiest bit to let get out of control. And I think we probably did that with our sort of pretty extensive recruitment, I guess. But it really does hurt you. But I think I said last time, Lewis and I were on, that this is sort of an opportunity for a reset, I think, and it looks like the club are handling that pretty well at the moment. So yeah, I mean, I'm pretty positive about that position. Hopefully, the players we're bringing in will be lower in number and won't be on the crazy wages of a few of the players that we've recruited in the past. And hopefully, yeah, we can keep that wage bill under a bit of control. I mean, on the Vlachodimos fee, it's all. I'm not convinced that we're going to be seeing a massive inflated fee that I think people are hoping for. I think, to be honest, if Forest have covered their noses on PSR with Vlachodimos, then that's a pretty good result, to be honest, because it's really not easy getting rid of a keeper that you've paid good money for, is on big wages, and has looks pretty ordinary / bad every time he's played. That's not an easy situation at all. So if we've come out of that one without having done any damage to our PSR calculations, then I'd consider that a very serious success, to be honest.
Yeah, as would I. Let's take a word for our sponsors, the Trent Navigation. Promoted one music festival on here recently. Here's another one. Trent Nav Fest, Saturday the 13th of July, 2 p.m. to late. You can see that on the bill are Stan Buckroyd. I love these names. I'm reading them off the top. This is the first time I've read them properly. High Speed Peach, Rook, Steve McGill, DJ Keycoms, who knows? But you can get your tickets from gigantic.com. Just search NavFest. So that is on 13th of July. Get that one in your diaries. And Pete, you were at the Nav last night to watch England. Which leads us nicely into a bit of England chat. What was it like at the venue, Pete? Because it was god awful watching at home. Was it slightly different surrounded by people or not?
I think it was probably a bit more fun than that, but it did get quite miserable as the game went on, to be fair. There was a lot of people shaking heads and looking pretty disgruntled, and that's a sort of chuntering, becoming more sweary as the night went on. But I mean, obviously, I think you can see the scenes of Bellingham's goal certainly on social media, and it was pretty lively. So worth checking that out. I'm not sure if I can really keep promoting the Nav for you though, because I've done this twice now, and both times I've woke up feeling a sort of strong sense of shame and exhaustion. So
that's more you than me. But yeah.
Not sure what they're doing to me over there. But no, it was good. It was good fun.
Lewis, I want to ask your take on a few things. Like I want to try and give managers the benefit of the doubt because they see players in training, they're around them all the time. But I was watching that game thinking, and I've quite liked Southgate previously, but I feel like he stayed at tournament too long. I'm sat there thinking, what the hell is he doing? Like, why are we not making any changes? What's going on? What was your take on it in general? I might have a couple of specifics as well, but what was your take on it in general last night?
Yeah, it's just it seems like we're having the same conversations after every game, aren't we? We're having the same debates, and I understand, and I know football managers are stubborn. That's just kind of a trait that they have, and sometimes that they rely on certain players. But I think where there's a line with management is that you have players that you always kind of go to and you trust, and that's really good to have. But sometimes they'll be the ones that cost you, and you can go over that line. And I think that Southgate's on that line now. I think that he's shown a lot of trust and commitment to a lot of players, and I think that a lot of players have possibly not doing what they should be doing. And unfortunately, he's not making them decisions. And I just feel with him that he just doesn't want to make big decisions, and that's my opinion. And it has been and I go back to, I think I did mention it on the podcast kind of at the start when the 33 was announced. The 33 that he named, we were speaking about Morgan and potentially could he have got that kind of call up into that bigger squad. That 33 he named. Once he named them, the whole country could have told you that the ones that was never going to go. And the extra players that got put in that 33, there was never there to put pressure on the squad of potentially getting their opportunity to get a last little seat on the plane. They was just there to make up numbers. You look at Curtis Jones, you look at Quant, them players, they should have been nowhere near the squad at this point in time. But I feel they're there, but it's numbers, but he doesn't want to have anyone there who can ruffle the feathers, potentially force his hand, and they have to leave maybe one of his kind of trusted or his big hitters out. And the game is followed on into the tournament in the 4 games now, and the subs, and you're looking at the people that we have on the bench and them attacking roles. I don't feel that he wants to put them on and give them enough time to affect the game, which allows them to maybe change everyone's narrative, because that will bring pressure onto the next game where you have to drop some of his trusted players and his stars. And I just don't think he wants to do that. And I think if you look at last night again, 75 minutes in, lads are on, you can see the players are dead on the feet, and he doesn't want to do nothing. He putting players on, even when he's putting them on, he's giving them a little bit of times where they can't really affect the game. You look at yesterday, I think Mainu is the only midfielder that actually plays like a centre midfielder. He does it all. And I think he's your person that you build around. But again, you take him off to put someone else on. It's like it's the same people all the time. It's the same people maybe get an opportunity, but if it's also the same people that's going to come out. And unfortunately, that's just the way it seems to be. Like we said just before we came on air, we can sit here and we can keep on talking game after game, but the reality is he's not going to budge. He's not going to change. He's not going to listen to anyone and start making a lot of changes to the team. So I think we've just got to understand where we are. We're very fortunate to be on that side of the draw and to play in the teams we're playing, and we're slowly getting through these games. And I think we've just got to enjoy it while we can, because if we keep talking and banging the same drum about the manager, he's shown after 4 games he's not going to change.
Before I come to Temps, I just want to ask you a tactical question, Lewis. I don't get. Like, we've got John Stones, who stepped into midfield for City. Yet we've got 2 midfielders standing on the toes of centre halves, taking the ball off them for no reason. And then the front 3 or 4 are absolutely miles from them. They all want to come to feet. No one wants to run in behind. Like, does the tactical setup look completely wrong, or is it on the players to work it out on the pitch? Do we have to point the finger at them a bit more?
I think international football is always difficult when you get players together, because at club level they're all playing different formations and different ways of playing. Some are really pressing from the front, some playing teams sitting kind of a mid block. So it's very different when you get them collectively together. But I look at certain scenarios. I think if you look at, for instance, Trent and his technical ability on the ball and his passing range, well, he can't do that when everyone wants to come to the ball and everyone wants the ball to feed, because he's got no. When you look at the Liverpool team, especially the wingers, you look at Salah, they're that way. He's always got that pass. So it's all right saying Trent come in. Trent's not been very good, but at the end of the day, he's playing in a team that are completely, his strengths are just getting nullified. And I think that's happening to a lot of the players, that their strengths that we see week in, week out are getting nullified in this team and this kind of way we're playing. But I think as a manager, and I think sometimes you have to be honest, and you have big players, but sometimes you've got to go, do you know what? You're not doing it. Harry Kane's been fantastic, but he's miles off it. He's miles off it. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, he scored, but he's nowhere near it. I think Jude, the goal, a brilliant moment, but apart from his goal in the first game, again, he's been miles off it. And I think the big thing is what you have to create, especially in tournament football. You have to create that culture, which is also spoke about. But you've got to think about it. We've all played football at any level. If you're sitting on that bench and you're seeing that game after game, it becomes a point where you become disinterested as a player, because you think to yourself, if you're seeing that and then players are playing like that and there's still no change, well, what does that say? Where does that give you that kind of ambition to go and drive and potentially I'm going to get the team? Anthony Gordon's not played. He played 5 minutes. And this is so later on in the tournament and these games, he's going to need them. And the biggest thing about being a manager is you've got to get the collective unit ready to go. And sometimes you're going to need to call upon someone who probably hasn't played, but that's your point of man management. That's your day-to-day thing of keeping everyone engaged, keeping everyone on board. And I just feel when he wants to change or decides to change, I think maybe it'd be too late.
I was watching it last night and thinking, what's Southgate's next job? And it feels like it's Saudi Pro League and some very awkward questions about past comments at the moment. Temps, what's your take on it all?
I think he's going to run a Volvo dealership somewhere in the home counties where the same people come in once every 3 years and buy a slightly new version of the same car in the same colour. It's probably mid-grey or something like that, all very safe, very, very dull, and no one gets too much satisfaction from it. I think that's what's happening in a footballing sense as well. He's setting up in a way that might help him just about come on the right side of an even game where it's a game of chess and you have to probe around and wait for that one chance. But you beat smaller nations by just overwhelming them with the quality of the players you've got and sheer attacking force. And this England side aren't doing that. And I don't think it's the personnel that are out there. It's the way they're set up to play. We bring on Ivan Toney yesterday, 2 up top, something different to react to. Defence is overwhelmed and we break through almost straight away. There's so many players in that squad that can affect the game individually by getting past a man, being direct, getting to the byline, whatever it might be, breaking a field and causing problems. But yeah, Gareth, I don't know what's going on. He seems to have just dug in deeper and deeper. And the more that the public, the pundits, tell him to let the brakes off and have a bit of abandon, the more he seems determined to stick, as Lewis says, to the 11 players that he had inked in his mind 6 months ago, a system that he had inked in his mind 6 months ago, and shows very little willingness to change. And just to kick on the car analogy a bit more, Jude Bellingham, Harry Kane, Rolls-Royce footballers, like absolute worldly players, would get into any side, be that club or country. We've got a few Lamborghinis in Saka and Cole Palmer, Phil Foden, just such exquisite individual ability, able to break a game. But we've got a Volvo as a team manager. He just wants to slow everything down, be super, super safe and get a decent NCAP rating or whatever they call it with those crash test dummies. So yeah, I just wish he'd just be a bit more, have some fun, Gareth. Try stuff. Let the brakes off. Let these boys have a go, because we might just go out there and spring some surprises and beat a Spain or a Germany when we have to by showing some attacking flair rather than trying to play for penalties. because that's absolutely not how we should be approaching games against Denmark and Slovenia.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get back to Forest now, but at the moment we look very much like we're going to lose the first decent side we play. And Switzerland are decent, but they're not great. But anyway, back to Forest. We'll pick up England again soon, probably later in the week, no doubt, or this time next week. Just on the whole PSR thing, Pete, I put this in the show notes. Are we the Rebel Alliance taking on the evil empire, Star Wars terms of the Big Six? I know we've got Chelsea in there as little Ewoks and stuff like that, but should we be celebrating that we've all stuck it to the Premier League and we're on 0 points? Does it all feel a bit grubby? How do you view it all?
Sort of all of the above, I think. I'm not desperately comfortable with any of it, to be honest. I'm not desperately keen to be involved in a Rebel Alliance, as you put it, that includes a state-owned sports washing operation and Chelsea, whatever the hell they are. So that doesn't give me any huge joy. But, the rules are clearly a bit problematic, the way that they're being implemented, and clubs are naturally finding ways around it. It's all a bit unedifying. I'm not desperately keen on the sort of way that young players are being moved around, a bit like pawns. It's a bit grim, but I don't know, it is what it is. Modern football is a bit bleak as far as I'm concerned. I don't really know where to stand on any of it, to be honest, because I think I probably disagree with a couple of the contributors in feeling like we need some of these rules in a sense to protect football clubs from rogue owners and the damage that they can do. But I don't think these clubs are these rules are the ones. And while these rules seem unfair to clubs, they're going to try and find a way around them. Even if they didn't seem unfair, they'd be trying to find a way around them. So I don't really know how to answer your question. I definitely don't feel like we're in some sort of Rebel Alliance that I can take any great joy in, because, as I said, I don't really want to be in a club that involves Newcastle, whatever that club is. But I see what they're doing, and actually, what Forest have done, I don't think is really similar to what a lot of the clubs have been doing on the face of it. I think we've just done some fairly sensible transfer business. We've not been hawking out our youngsters for mad fees. I guess probably partly because we haven't really got any who are obvious candidates. But yeah, so I don't know how to answer your question, to be honest. I'm not overjoyed by it, but I'm not critical of the club either here.
No, we haven't taken down the Death Star. We found the weakness, maybe, but yeah, I agree with what you're saying, and we've done some really good business with Lyon. That's really helped us out. We're not quite as much in the same club. We got our foot in there a little bit at the end, but we exploited Newcastle's weakness, if anything. So yeah, we've benefited from that. What about the state of the squad in general, Lewis? As we sit here today, there's a lot of water to go under the bridge before September. But are you liking the look of what we have right now with Murillo, Gibbs-White? We've got those attacking players. We've got Anderson. I guess there's still quite a lot of work to do filling in and around the edges, but it feels like we're in a good place.
Yeah, definitely. I think, especially over the last couple of months, since the season's finished, a lot of our talk has been about kind of losing one of the big two. And I think we sit here as of today and hopefully with the deals that's happened, they look like they're going to stay. So it's definitely positive. And I think now is that point of pre-season's around the corner, they're about to start, and you start to get the first team friendlies. And I think it's just nice to now start concentrating on football and on the pitch, really. I think the problem is now a lot of the noise and a lot of the conversation is about off the pitch and all these financial things. And I think we're forgetting kind of the main thing, what makes us all obsessed with football and obsessed with the football club is that we love football, we love watching it, and we love seeing these players perform at the highest potential. So I think it's now that perfect opportunity. Hopefully this is done and put to bed for now, and we can just concentrate and look forward to a very good pre-season and what hopefully can be a really good start to the season.
Thank you very much to Luke One for signing up as a member. Appreciate the support, Luke. How are you thinking about it, Temps? I think you touched on it earlier as well. Like, if we do have to sell someone now, at least it's on our terms. And if Murillo goes, then it's got to be for really inflated money. And the same with Morgan, and the same with Ilanga or Hudson-Odoi. Yeah, are you feeling like we're in? We've got a strong hand to play right now?
Yes, we walk into this season with the idealistic view that we want Morgan Gibbs-White and Murillo in our team, and that's absolutely our gift now because we've complied with the rules that the Premier League have laid out for us. I think it puts us in a good position where they get around the conference room table, make a recommendation to Evangelos Marinakis, and ultimately he decides if those players stay or go, and there's no bad outcome because the alternative to having these two great young players in your side is a pile of cash that's so significant we can feel we can do more with it to strengthen 2 or 3 members of our starting 11, 2 or 3 positions in our starting 11 that we feel need work or depth. So yeah, we're in a fantastic position. And I was out there quite publicly as not thinking Murillo would survive this week as a Forest player. I thought it'd be tested far beyond what we have. There's been a lack of chat around it. I don't think there's been any concrete news of moves, and that's because the inquiries would have been met quite firmly with a line from Forest and those out in agency land that we do not need to sell, and that's put them off for now. I think once teams have done the majority of their business and they get towards the back end of the transfer window and see they have a need for a progressive left-sided centre half, there'll be some knocks and our resolve will be tested once more. I think Murillo's got a European market that he could head for. There'll be some money teams in France. There'll be some teams in Spain, perhaps more notably, but a lot of Champions League clubs that would be looking to take him on. I think Morgan Gibbs-White's next move is a domestic one. I think for where he's at with his family, his style of play, and what he wants to do next, I see him moving to another Premier League club. But I think our resolve will be tested. But it's on our terms. I don't envisage a position where either of those players try to force moves. But if significant finance is put on the table, it will be duly considered. If someone comes in with a derisory offer, they'll be sent packing, and that's exactly where we want to be.
I was just the other thing I read in a piece today in the I paper by a guy called Mark Douglas, who used to cover Newcastle. He's quite willing, just saying that they still have Gibbs-White on their list, so it's worth noting. Now they've kind of reset their own accounts. Rob asks about has Mangala sale been announced, and obviously Niakhate goes hand in hand with that. No, I don't think officially. I know Fabrizio Romano said the contract's been signed for him, so we'll wait and see. I mean, the fact that Lyon. It seems from reading, I saw Danny Taylor tweeted this. They just paid us a shed load of money for players with nothing in return. 50 million quid for the 2 of them. I mean, that's fantastic. It's pretty mad, actually, isn't it?
I mean, if it's not the case that we owe them some sort of grisly favour later down the line, and this is just as it is on the face of it, then I think it's pretty remarkable business, to be honest. I'm not sure who's been in charge of doing the business. I know in January George Sirianos was sort of tasked with getting rid of as many of the players that we didn't need as possible and trying to generate some cash. So perhaps this is his work, or perhaps it's the hierarchy elsewhere. I'm not sure, but whoever's done that, they've played an absolute blinder. I mean, I saw that Lyon had offered a fairly significant sum for the other guy Newcastle were trying to get rid of as well. So I'm not sure where their cash is necessarily coming from. I'm not familiar with their finances, but absolutely ideal for Forest to be getting involved as they're getting their wallet out. So that's gone really rather nicely for us.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, just from a PSR point of view, I think you just have to show that you negotiated the deal beforehand within a certain window. I mean, it can't be like going on to the end of August, like with Brennan and stuff like that, where he actually played for us. But as long as we can demonstrate it, then I think we're touch wood, all right, PSR wise. One other player, Lewis, I meant to ask about earlier, who's still technically our player, I think he'll go to Bologna, is Freuler. I mean, I think he'll go, but let's just, in a fanciful world, say he doesn't go. Would he fit into our setup still? And are we completely revising how good or bad he is now we're seeing him in the Euros? What do you think about how he fits in or not?
Yeah, probably in by both parties. I think that ship's probably sailed, but that happens. But again, sometimes you can look and a player come in and for various reasons it just doesn't work out. Whether that's system, whether that's them settling in, whether that's the manager or the relationship, it just happens. It will continue to happen. I think if we look at it as a football club, there's maybe a lot of players that have came into our club maybe with not the best of recommendations and feelings from other fans, and they've ended up being really, really good and successful players for us. That's just football, I'm afraid. Sometimes you land in a club and everything kind of flicks together and connects, and you feel really good about things, and it works. And sometimes, for no one's fault, you can go somewhere and it just doesn't work out. And maybe at that time we had a lot of players coming in. We was in a different place in terms of just coming into the league. And maybe because he's used to Italian football, and like I said, Italian football is a lot slower pace than the Premier League. And if you look, a lot of his career, his success has been there. So that might be the league and the kind of football that suits him, and that's fine. I mean, it's no disrespect to him or the club, but we move on and hopefully try and get somebody else.
Just one other note that's just come out on Twitter about Vlachodimos. Greek media reporting that it's up reaching 15 million euros, which is absolutely sensational if true. I'm mad, but yeah, I would massively take that. So high fives all around if that's the case with Vlachodimos. One thing on Freuler as well, Temps. This is a general bugbear of mine. Feel free to come in or disagree. Just the terrible revisionism around that whole season about, Freuler was massively mismanaged. Player X was massively mismanaged. Like, he should have played as an 8. Well, he did play as an 8 in some games. And he didn't do that great. And then we played Danilo as an 8, and we played Freuler as a 6 because, I think we had to, because Shelby came in and stunk the joint up. So we had Yates, Danilo, and Freuler by the end of the season, unless I'm forgetting other players. And then we had Jack Cole back. So, I don't know. It just annoys me the way people rewrite that whole season as if, Cooper effed everything up. I almost sort of saw them. But any comment on Freuler or anything that I've just said there, or should we just move on?
30,000 people come to watch Remo Freuler, Lewis McGugan play football, and millions more watch the highlights on telly. What you do is what informs your status within a team, your presence within a team, or your next move. Remo Freuler was not doing for Forest what he does in Serie A and what he does for Switzerland, where he's positionally excellent. I'd hesitate to say creative, but he keeps the ball moving, very comfortable playing a wall pass, changing the point of attack, keep things popping, good technical footballer. Looked lost at Forest and played far too many passes to the right back under no pressure. So no, he wasn't treated unfairly. He had more than enough game time to impose his style of play and make himself undroppable, as several players have at Forest. He didn't do it. So we ended up trading him, and he won't be back. There is no way back for Remo Freuler, despite what he does internationally, despite what he does at his club side. It didn't work at our place. I would suggest the decision's been making that his way is incompatible with the Premier League, and whilst we'll have a successful future, it won't be in England.
Good. It was just a bugbear of mine, all this kind of revisionist conversations that we seem to have on Twitter that I read too much of. Right, I put the advert up there for Global Telemetrics. Thanks for their support as ever. The vehicle tracking company recovered £39 million worth of vehicles last year. So if thieves take your car, they will help get it back for you, and they can also have a no tag, no start device showing that if someone tries to take your car and it's got that device, then it won't move and they'll have to give up effectively. Now, going back to the person on the graphic, Temps speculated last week. Well, I speculated, and Temps really elevates it to say that this fella is a poker turn gamekeeper and a thief. But he's not. I did check it out. He's in fact an employee betraying the part there. He is part of their ground team, and he's the head of technical as well at Global Telemetrics. So just to clear up that man is not a thief, and it never has been, to my knowledge.
But if he was a thief, he'd tell you he wasn't. So I still feel none the wiser, really, Matt.
Double down, Temps. That's the way. Never take a backward step. Right. I think that covers most of the ground that I wanted to get through today. We'll be back tomorrow with Greg and Emily with any other stuff that emerges, which there probably will be, no doubt. But any other business, Pete Blackburn?
No, nothing from me apart from you better make sure you check the comments, because it looks like someone wants to sponsor the show, and the sooner you get the cash flowing and start spreading it around the contributors, the better.
Oh, excuse me, I'll scroll back through. Who wants to sponsor the show? Temps, any other business?
Well, I was looking back through Getty Images because me and Pete had that picture of us in the 80s when we had great hair, thinking there'd be some embarrassing picture of Lewis McGugan, but he's managed to keep hold of his youthful look since he was 19 by the look of things. I'm looking back at even the League One season, he's looking as fresh now as he was then. So yeah, if you're trying to embarrass Lewis through Google Images, he's either got a very good social media management out there, or I need to know what moisturizer he's using, because these pictures just don't exist.
Lewis, what moisturizer are you using?
No, just can't really moisturize. Yeah, it's just natural.
Dude.
Yeah.
Poor Lewis. We got him on the show talking about sausage sandwiches and where you put chocolate last week, and now it's what his skincare regime is. So yeah, I hope he keeps coming back.
Brown sauce. Get brown sauce.
Temps, do you put brown sauce on a sausage roll?
No, mate, I don't touch sausage rolls, pal. I'm an athlete.
That's weird, because the last time I went to your house, you'd made a sausage and egg sandwich. That's I recall. With a shitload of ketchup on it. You made it. You were the chef. It was impressive. Right, I'm putting my email address in the chat, going beyond the illusion. So drop me an email about sponsorship. I don't want to broadcast rates on here, but yeah, any inquiries very welcome if people want to get on board and support us. Right, Lewis, any other business, football related, skincare related, or otherwise? No. Good. Right. Good to have everyone's company today. Like I said, we are back tomorrow with Greg and Emily. Wednesday with Paul Anderson about retirement, coaching. It's quite interesting, his take on coaching, about whether players are overcoached and if the game's got too complicated, picking up on stuff, that Lewis and Nathan and Kelvin have discussed on here as well. So Paul's got some interesting chat about that. And then I'm speaking to a guy in New Zealand as well about Chris Wood, New Zealand football, and Stamenic, most notably, because he seems to think that Stamenic is going to break the mould and he's got a future with us in the Premier League. So it'll be interesting to get their insight. But in the meantime, Pete, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Pleasure.
Temps, thank you very much.
Cheers, fellas. See you soon.
Lewis is off to reevaluate his life choices. Lewis, thank you very much.
No problem at all.
Good man. Right, we shall be back tomorrow, like I say. But in the meantime, have a good day and we shall see you soon.